Let love be genuine. Hate what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. Amen. We're near the end of Paul's letter to the Romans, and he has made his way through some heavy theological territory, and now he's turning towards more practical Christian living. What does it mean to offer our bodies as living sacrifices, as Scott talked about last week? What does it mean to have our minds transformed? How do we live the way God's love invites us to live? Today's passage is just kind of a rapid-fire list of instructions. And most of what we read feels almost obvious, so clearly right and true that we can just nod our heads along with this rapid-fire list of instructions. Except for me, maybe for you, this one little line, hate what is evil. When I was a child, I was not allowed to use the word hate. It was too strong. I could only dislike things. But here Paul says, hate what is evil. And I think if you're paying attention, it shocks you out of the head nodding a little. Because, besides that, it maybe sounds like the things you might say to your kindergartner as you send her to her first day of school. Be kind and respectful, show honor to others, have patience. Oh, and hate what is evil. Why don't we say that to our kindergartners when we send them to their first day of school? Maybe because we don't trust them to be able to identify what's evil, to distinguish between what I don't like. I hate Brussels sprouts. I hate the color orange. And what's evil. Or perhaps because we're afraid that they may find in that instruction some permission for violence, thinking that if something is evil, they have permission to stomp it out. Or maybe we don't say it because we don't want there to be any chance that they might feel buried in the shame that can come when you identify some evil impulses in yourself and begin to feel some self-hatred. Maybe we don't say this because we want them to go out into the world with curiosity rather than judgment. And the admonition to hate what is evil feels like an invitation to judge rather than to ask questions. Of course, I'm not just talking about kindergartners. All of these things can also go wrong in us when we try to practice this admonition to hate what is evil. We can be wrong about what is evil. And Christians historically have been very wrong about what is evil. I could list the things, but I think about the long history of Christian anti-Semitism. That was hating the wrong thing. Then I also think about things I heard preachers say 30 years ago, things that they called evil 30 years ago when I was sitting in a pew, that I have now seen to be good. It is so easy to get that wrong, and violently wrong. We can feel self-hatred and shame for the sinful inclinations of our own hearts, or we might grow so filled with certainty and self-righteousness that we judge other people and lose our curiosity about them, about the stories behind the people we see. Sometimes, in our hatred of what is evil, we forget humility. We forget that our judgment is wrong. And I think maybe that's a little bit what's happening with Peter in the gospel we read today, because Jesus begins to tell his disciples about the suffering he's going to undergo. and the death that is imminent. And Peter hates it. And he says so. And I think I hate it too. I don't want Jesus to undergo suffering and to die. But Jesus says Peter is wrong to hate that. Jesus says, Peter, you don't always know what's right and what's wrong. You might be hating the wrong thing here. Instead of jumping to judgment, ask some questions. Turn your mind toward heavenly things, Jesus says. Consider a different perspective. Hate what is evil. How are we supposed to embrace this instruction from St. Paul once we're aware of how easy it is to be wrong? I mean, maybe sometimes I think we should just pretend this part isn't even there. We'll stick to the easier stuff. Hold fast to what is good. Let's go on to that line. Hold fast to what is good. Now that I can tell my kindergartner, and I can embroider on a couch cushion, and I can hand letter and mass produce and sell at Hobby Lobby and make into a very good sermon for Trinitarians. But avoiding evil can't mean giving up on identifying it. It can't mean ignoring it, clinging to what is good with our eyes screwed shut and our ears stuffed with cotton to block out anything that might be evil. Hate what is evil. If we want to know how to do any impossible thing, where do we look? To Jesus. So how does Jesus hate what is evil? Well, Jesus did not pretend that evil didn't exist. He called it out. He called demons out of people. He touched the infectious and brought healing. And he moved steadily towards injustice so that it might be revealed and overcome. He did not just hold fast to what was good. He also moved towards evil so that it might be transformed. Our kindergarten level paraphrase of this might be, if you see something that you think is bad, ask questions about it. Bring attention to it. If you see someone who you think is sick, tell a doctor. For Jesus, to hate what was evil was to take up his cross. He carried that heavy, bulky instrument of state torture and control up to a place where its violence, the violence of empire, could be exposed for all to see. And as he did so, as Jesus clung to the cross, death and evil were definitively defeated. Through his sacrifice, that symbol of state-sanctioned violence was transformed into the symbol of love that we wear. And death and evil were revealed for once to be what they truly are. And what they truly are is nothing. Because Christ defeated them, he walked straight toward them and then through them to resurrection. You know, one of the metaphors the New Testament uses for evil, for good and evil, is this metaphor of chaff and wheat, or in some places of straw and gold. What is evil, the chaff, the wheat, these things will not endure. They will blow away in the slightest puff of wind. What is good, the wheat, the gold, that we can hold on to. That will endure. It's not actually possible to cling to what is evil, because evil slips right through your fingers. It blows away like chaff. And it slips right through your fingers because Jesus, in conquering death, has shown us that it doesn't last. It doesn't have the last word. The damage done by sin, the suffering we've experienced, those things are real. The pain and the suffering, I don't mean to say it's not real. I only mean it doesn't endure. And at the cross, our sin and our shame are already gone. Because here, with Jesus taking up his cross, we have found something real, solid and sturdy, good. And now, as we move towards him, towards his table, to be fed by his sacrifice again, to become one body with him, that's our way of holding fast to what is good. And when we are holding fast to what is good, to Jesus, we can follow him through suffering, knowing that it doesn't endure, and what is coming is resurrection.